Welcome to Pages to Prosperity, where we bring the wisdom of life-changing books straight to you. Today, we're diving into The Art of Thinking Clearly by Rolf Dobelli, a masterful guide to recognizing and avoiding cognitive biases that cloud our judgment. Think of this book as a mental clarity toolkit, helping you make smarter decisions in work, relationships, and everyday life. Are you ready to declutter your thinking? Let's get started. Dobelli opens with a striking premise. We're all prone to irrational thinking, and most of the time, we don't even realize it. From biases to mental shortcuts, our minds often lead us astray. But here's the good news. Once we identify these tendencies, we can learn to overcome them. Dobelli calls this thinking clearly, and it starts with self-awareness. Imagine you spent $50 on concert tickets. On the day of the concert, it's pouring rain, and you feel exhausted. Yet you convince yourself to go because you already paid for the ticket. This decision ignores the fact that your $50 is a sunk cost, gone, no matter what. Dobelli explains that the logical choice is to prioritize your current happiness and comfort, not your past expenditure. Think about relationships or careers. How many people stay in toxic situations because they've already invested years? Dobelli urges us to recognize when it's time to cut our losses and move forward. The next key idea Dobelli explores is the confirmation bias. This is our tendency to seek out information that confirms our existing beliefs while ignoring evidence that contradicts them. Picture this. You believe that drinking coffee every day is healthy, so you Google benefits of coffee. You skim articles praising caffeine while ignoring studies about its downsides. That's confirmation bias in action. Dobelli suggests we combat this by actively seeking out opposing viewpoints. For example, if you think a particular investment is a sure thing, ask yourself, what would someone with the opposite opinion say? This habit won't just make you smarter. It'll make your decisions more balanced and robust. Now let's talk about social proof, one of the most powerful influencers of human behavior. Have you ever walked into a restaurant because it was packed with people, assuming it must be good? That's social proof at work. The line could be long because they are short-staffed. Dobelli shares a story about a sidewalk performer who started his act with an empty hat. Nobody stopped to watch. Then he asked a friend to put some money in the hat, and suddenly, a crowd gathered. This bias can lead us astray in critical situations. Dobelli warns against blindly following the crowd, especially in areas like investing or career choices. Instead, he encourages us to pause and question, is this decision right for me, or am I just following the herd? One of my favorite chapters is about the halo effect. This bias occurs when we let one positive trait of a person or thing influence our entire judgment. For instance, if someone is attractive, we might assume they're also intelligent or trustworthy. Dobelli illustrates this with a story about Steve Jobs. His charisma and public persona made people believe Apple products were flawless, even when some had significant issues. To overcome the halo effect, Dobelli advises us to evaluate each aspect of a person or product independently. For example, when hiring someone, don't let their charming personality overshadow their actual qualifications. Dobelli doesn't just point out our cognitive flaws. He also offers practical solutions. Take the availability bias, for example. This is our tendency to overestimate the importance of information that's readily available to us. If you've watched a lot of news about plane crashes, you might think flying is dangerous, even though it's statistically much safer than driving. Dobelli suggests that we focus on hard data rather than anecdotal evidence. When making decisions, ask yourself, is my judgment based on facts or just the most vivid story I've heard recently? Another bias is the outcome bias. This occurs when we judge decisions based solely on their outcomes, ignoring the quality of the decision-making process. Imagine a friend who wins big at a casino. You might think their decision to gamble was smart because it paid off. But was it really? Dobelli argues that a good decision is one that's well thought out, regardless of the result. He shares an example from the business world. Two CEOs make risky investments. One succeeds and the other fails. We often praise the first and criticize the second, but in reality, both took similar risks. Dobelli encourages us to focus on the process, not just the outcome. Let's not forget about loss aversion, a bias that makes us fear losses more than we value gains. Studies show that losing $50 feels twice as bad as gaining $50 feels good. This fear of loss can paralyze us, preventing us from taking necessary risks. Dobelli suggests reframing risks to make them less intimidating. Instead of thinking about what you might lose, focus on what you stand to gain. For example, if you're considering starting a side business, don't dwell on the possibility of failure. Think about the skills you'll learn and the doors it might open. One of the most eye-opening sections is about overconfidence. Dobelli explains that we all tend to overestimate our abilities and knowledge. For instance, most drivers think they're above average, which is statistically impossible. This might lead to them being less cautious when driving. Overconfidence can lead to poor decisions. To counteract this, Dobelli recommends humility and continuous learning. Remember, the smartest people are those who know they still have a lot to learn. Dobelli also touches on the paradox of choice. In today's world, we're bombarded with options, from 50 types of toothpaste to endless career paths. While choice is often seen as freedom, too much choice can lead to decision paralysis and dissatisfaction. His advice: simplify. Set clear criteria for your decisions and stick to them. For example, if you're buying a car, decide on your top 3 must-haves, like fuel efficiency, cost, and safety, and ignore the rest. Simplification not only saves time, but also reduces stress. As we wrap up, here's Dobelli's overarching message. Thinking clearly is a skill that can be learned. By recognizing and addressing our cognitive biases, we can make better decisions, avoid costly mistakes, and lead more intentional lives. Thank you for joining Pages to Prosperity on this journey through the art of thinking clearly by Rolf Dobelli. If this summary helped you see the world and your own mind in a new light, share it with someone who could use a mental clarity boost. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more insightful book summaries that will sharpen your thinking and elevate your life. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep thinking clearly. See you in the next summary.